What up, what up? Welcome back. Octane and Zip Ties, Logan here. Today we are going to be shortening the LS400 front subframe. Basically, it raises your engine and transmission, as well as raising your front subframe so that when you're going low, you don't scrape through it. Or depending on as low as you're going, you won't scrape through it as fast. And then down the road, I am going to custom make or CNC some engine and trans pucks, the slotted pucks that you go in there, just to raise it up a little bit more, but this will actually raise it quite a bit. So it is raining. I've got the LS in the garage. Sorry if you guys can't hear me very well. We got some lawn service and stuff out there going, but yeah, the LS is in the garage. We got the engine hoist to make it easier for when the front subframe is out, to hold the engine and trans up while I'm cutting it. And yeah, so I'm trying to get that all done so I can finally lower the front, hopefully match it with the rears, as the rears are tucking pretty heavy right now. But yeah, so let me get this thing up in the air, and then I will bring you guys along for step-by-step of how I'm doing it, how I'm cutting it, and then reinstalling it. So stay tuned. Car's in the air. I ended up taking off this drip pan, dust shield, whatever you want to call it, and then I took off the other one right there. So it's just a few bolts lining up right here, bolt or two on the sides for that one, and then I think one or two in the middle. And then for that, it's just a bunch of 10s. There's one over there, that little hole, and then basically on the front subframe. So car's in the air. What I did was I actually took a rag and wiped down a lot of this stuff just to make it easier for me, less dirty and grimy when I'm starting to take stuff apart. So she's in the air. Only thing that is really connected to the actual front subframe is going to be right here, your lower control arm, and then you've got your engine mounts and your steering rack. So what I'm going to do first is take off the lower control arms on both sides. I'm going to look at the steering rack because I've yet to do that and see how that is bolted on. And then once I get close to actually dropping the front subframe, I'm going to see if I can take off the engine mounts first, or I'm not sure how I'm going to do that yet. And then I'll end up needing to set this up pretty soon. Hopefully this won't take that long. I might take this to de-welding, take it to the shop because they've got the water bandsaw, and get it cut pretty evenly. Then I'll show you everything else, you know, putting it back together. So I'm gonna start on this, and of course bring you guys along, let you know how I do it, and I guess if there's an easy or how hard it's gonna be. So let's get her done. All right, so as long as the previous owner has not taken off, you know, a bunch of this little stuff, I just got done taking off the lower control arm bolt, as you can see. So what's going to happen is this is basically going to sit in this little slot, right? And then it's going to attach, oh sorry, and then it's going to attach right there onto this, on this little bolt. So this nut is a 17. Sorry, I had to stop because of the leaf blower guy. So this 17 nut is going to hold this on right there. Easy 17. On this side, we've got a 22. So I use this 22 wrench. It honestly wasn't, you know, smoked on. I ended up getting it off pretty easy. So you just stick it in there and loosen her up. And then once you're done, I just took the hammer and I just went ding ding ding, and it came straight out. So I put it back together the way that it went in, so I don't have any problems. And then I'm gonna leave the steering rack in this, because when I loosen that, it'll still be held up by this whole assembly, so it won't have a lot of stress on that. We've got two bolts on, well, one right here on this part of the side of the steering rack, and then one on the other side. Same with the passenger side, you've got two right there. And then after I get that off, I'm gonna loosen the two engine. I'm gonna loosen the two engine mounts from the bottom, and then start taking off the subframe. So piece by piece. Alright, I figured this would be a good time to stop and vlog real quick. So we've got the chain hooked up to the factory motor, hoist, hooks, whatever you want to call them. There's one right there and then one diagonally right here. Got the legs out. So before I actually took off the 2 nuts that hold on the engine mounts, I put a little tension on this just to hopefully, you know, make it easier, which it did. And now, as you can tell, the engine actually goes up and I'm not trying to lift it that much more, but the engine moves right now because I just got off these engine mount nuts. So let's see if you guys can see right inside of there. Nope, you can't. Well, there you go. So that is going to be the stud for the engine mount, which is a 17. I have the impact, so it made it super easy just to zing that thing off. If not, you will have to grab a 17 wrench, which I've actually got right there just in case. And there is a nut on the top of this engine mount. Nope, yo, you can barely see it right there. There's a nut right there. If this one here is free spinning, then you have to hold that one. So same with the other side. I just zipped that one off. Right here, the power steering rack. Before I was rudely interrupted by Diesel's barking, I was telling you guys about right here are where the bracket is for the power steering. It is a 17 bolt with a 17 on the top. I just used the 17 wrench to hold that tight, and then same with on the back. I just put the 17 wrench in here. Same with the other side. Honestly, it wasn't very hard to get to those. It is just, you know, it depends how dirty that is and how much you got to reach in. So, again, lower control arms are off. I think I'm going to leave the tension arm on. That's just one less thing to be hanging and in the way. If I move this, I can... well, I could at least on the other side. So, yeah. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. If I'm going to hold this power steering up by maybe hooking it to the trans or the engine, but now it's pretty much just taking off all of these front subframe bolts or nuts, I guess I should say, and yeah. Alright, we're back. I figured it'd be a good time to vlog this. I do want to apologize. I try to get as much as I can for you guys, especially when I'm working alone, but some circumstances I'm going back and forth and I've got a lot of stuff in the way, so I can't do a time lapse or some of the other stuff where I'm actually showing you guys pull it out. I will try to get better at that. I know some of the people have hit me up asking about that too, but the subframe is out. So here it is. And what I did was I degreased it, scrubbed it down, sprayed it off, and then I used the rest of the brake cleaner that I've got and sprayed it down, pretty much ate it all up, and then degreased, sprayed it down one more time just for when we bring it to the shop and stuff, it's not all gross. But the part that we're going to be cutting off is this part right here. So as you can see, where it bolts up to and where the downslope is. So right here is where we're going to be cutting it, and basically bolting it back up raises the engine and transmission that about, I think it's like 0.8, 0.9 inches, almost an inch of clearance. So yeah, we're going to be cutting it right here, basically cutting it flat, which leaves the holes because the bolts go straight through, and I'll show you how to deal with that later. But I'm excited about this, and yeah, I'm about to head off to de-welding. We're gonna use that water bandsaw and cut it up. If you have 2 jacks, they came in clutch for me. I ended up taking off the tension arm on that side. I didn't need to, I thought I did, and so I left this side on. But to get the subframe out, I lifted up this jack on this side right underneath the rotor, and it basically pulled the mounting point for the lower control arm. As I jacked it up, it basically pulled it out of the way. Same for the other side, so that this could actually slip and drop down. I used the hammer just to hit it and wiggle it just a little bit on those bolts, because those bolts do move, so it will get snagged. But yeah, engine hoist is holding the engine up. I'm just gonna leave these jacks where they're at right now, just because I'm gonna end up putting it back together and that was pretty much it. Honestly, it was pretty easy. Only took about 2-ish hours to get the whole entire thing done, which is not that bad. And that was also with me on FaceTime with some of the boys, and you know, not doing it too quick. So I think putting it in should be easier, but we'll see. Always something that comes up. But yeah, I'm gonna wash up and then head to the shop. So see you guys when we get there. We're back. I ended up changing shirts just because hopped in the truck. You know, figured I'd stay clean. But I'm back from de-welding. He actually wasn't able to cut it, or at least the way that their machine is set up, it'd be really hard setting this up. But what we did was we made some markings all the way around with a micrometer, a metal one. Let's see if you guys can see that. So you see that all the way around is basically the markings in which I'm gonna cut. I am going to use, we've got a big vise over there. I'm gonna use that to hold this down, and then I'm just gonna take a Sawzall to it. I'm gonna cut it a little bit higher than where we marked, just so I can use either a flapper wheel or a grinder wheel to make it smooth and even out the surface. But yeah, I mean, I had a buddy that did this, and he just used a Sawzall as well, and it came out pretty easy, pretty good. So I think that's just the way that I'm gonna do it. Maybe it doesn't save more time, but check your motor mounts and see if you're gonna need to replace them. Almost always when you drop these, you're gonna have to replace them. I've got new ones that O'Reilly's will have tomorrow morning for me, and I'll be picking those up and putting them in. But I still plan on putting this together, and then I might just have the cherry picker hold the engine up, and we'll push all this out just overnight, and then I'll get to that in the morning. But yeah, new mounts coming, and I'm going to shave this. So set up the camera and show you guys what we're working with. So I just got the front subframe in the vise. Before you say anything about how I'm doing it, it's my car. This is the way I'm doing it. You're watching the video because you want to know how I'm doing it. If you want to do it another way, feel free, but this is what I'm doing. So back to this. Again, we've got the lines right here that are etched in, and this is about secure as can be. So yeah, I am just going to take the Sawzall, and I'm actually going to go on top of these etches, and I'm just going to cut it all the way through. I will take a level after, put it on the ground, and make sure that these are level. And the reason that I'm cutting it just above that is because that will give me a little bit of playroom in case I need to grind it, use a flapper wheel, make sure it's flat and straighten it out. So I got my handy dandy level right here. I've got the Diablo metal Sawzall cutting blades, and I'm gonna grab some glasses and get to work on this bad boy. So I will show you guys the end result in a few minutes. Figured I'd stop and show you guys the progress real quick. So I'm about almost all the way done with this one. Probably more than 3/4 of the way done through that one. And you guys can see that's pretty damn straight. So yeah, you guys will see it once I'm done with this side. Only been doing this for about, you know, maybe 10 minutes, and then the other side's coming next. So once both sides are done, I'll put it on the ground. I'll see how level they are. If I need to clearance them, just with one of the grinders or something, I will. And then yeah, and then after that, it's on to the install. So I'm hyped. It's coming along pretty well. and she's off. So, oh, if I say so myself, that's a pretty damn clean cut. Of course, right at the end, I gotta clean up that nipple just a little bit, but here she is. Probably hot. Oh, maybe a little bit. There we go. This is the whole entire section that I cut off. As you can see, bam. You can see the old one right there is where it's gonna line up to. So now to do this one, probably just gonna flip the subframe because I don't know, out here it's actually pretty easy. So yeah, now onto the same thing. I'm happy with honestly how clean the cut came out, and shoot, now I just want to get the other side done so I can clean them up and then throw this thing back in. But ooh, the damn, that's a big difference. That's gonna help out raising the actual entire subframe instead of just leaving the subframe where it is and then raising the engine and trans with the pucks that people use. This will actually raise this a bit too, so I'm excited for that. It's just, you know, that's another inch of clearance from the ground when she's dumped. And then engine and trans is going to go up even more once I make some pucks, or maybe even just weld on a plate right here and then drill these cuts and nipple hole so that the engine mounts can go in. But you know, that's all in due time. And right now I'll finish this up. Boom bam, skibbly doo dam, boom bam. She's done. So that one is pretty straight too. So what I'm going to end up doing actually is taking this off, putting it on the ground because the bottom of this is flat, and I'm going to see how level both of these are. So I can tell that this one is a little bit off on right here, kind of goes straight, and then, you know, cuts out a little bit. You got a brand new flapper wheel, grinder wheel, whatever you want to call it, that I will be using to level that out. But yeah, so both of them are done. I ended up getting a little bit sidetracked. Still sunny out, but sun is going to be going down pretty soon. So you will need to add some washers on the bottom because of the bolt length. It is too long and it's not threaded all the way up. Show you guys that in a little bit if you stay tuned. That is going to help when you bolt this thing up. And again, I would recommend that you get motor mounts when you are doing this, if you are doing this, because most likely these have never been changed. Whether you're original owner or 10th owner, I promise you, unless, you know, they're spending stupid amount of money on, you know, keeping the maintenance up, I promise they have probably not done their motor mounts. So I'm hyped. This is finally done. I would really recommend you get some high strength metal cutting sawzall blades if you're gonna do it with the sawzall like I did, and honestly get a bunch of new blades. I have a bunch of used blades and it didn't cut as smoothly as I wanted it to, but it still worked, as you can tell. So I'll be putting this on the ground, making sure it's level, and going from there. So I'm excited how it's come out so far. Let's keep it going. Alright, so I just went in, ate with the family. Front subframe is on the ground. Honestly, it's pretty level. I'm going to take that flapper wheel, grinder wheel, and clean that up some. I just got the Lexus. I had my mom actually start it up, put it in drive, while me and my dad used this engine hoist, and then we had the two jack stands on each of the points, and basically she just barely let off the brake, and it rolled itself out, and then, you know, chalked the back again and stuff. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grind this off right now before the sun goes down, and then I'm gonna set up a shop light underneath the car. Honestly, it's not very greasy, but I do have some pretty good degreaser, and I'm gonna spray everything down and then get to scrubbing and leave that overnight before I actually put the front subframe in and get the other little things that I need to get. So I'm excited to get this thing cleaned. If there is any small leaks or whatever, I'll be able to find them. I probably will end up having to do the trans gasket and the oil pan gasket, just because nothing actually major, but I can tell there is a little bit of leaking on both of those. Nothing where it really affects fluid, but you can see around the undercarriage of the car. So I'm gonna get to that grinding and then get to cleaning up the undercarriage of this, and I think that might be it for tonight. I might clean up the garage some, but other than that, the rest of it will be started tomorrow morning when I get the new engine mounts. I'll put those on. I'll show you guys how to do the washers on the bolts, and hopefully finish it up pretty quick. So stay tuned, and we'll catch you in a minute. And we're back. So it's actually the next day. This morning I ended up going to Ace Hardware and picking up a 40 grit flapper wheel. This is going to be for the grinding down of both of these sides. I just want to make sure that they're level and flat and the same. And then I actually picked up a 50 count of these 9/16 flat washers, grade 8. Let me show you what they look like real quick, and I'll explain why you're gonna need some of these in a minute. So yeah, I'll explain that in a minute. These are basically gonna be the spacer between the nut on the bolt that goes through the part that I cut, so that your subframe sits flush and doesn't wiggle or drop. So I'm gonna get to this. This morning I actually cleaned off the undercarriage just a bit more. It was already pretty much clean, but I figured since it rained, I'd hit it again with some degreaser. But now onto the subframe, and let's get this day started. Now that I am done shaving down and leveling out the front subframe, forgot to mention I actually got my motor mount this morning. Oh, there we go. These are from O'Reilly's, 90 bucks for the pair. I know I could have went on eBay and got them cheaper. Alex was telling me he got his pretty cheap, but I needed them next day and they got them next day. So I believe this is the driver's side, just the way it's set up. It's pretty much like the other one. And then I believe the passenger side just might not have this weird thing. It's more of like symmetrical top and bottom. But I'll show you guys putting them on. I'm actually gonna put those on first before I put on the front subframe. And I think also what I'm gonna do is take off the whole lower control arm from this assembly before I put on the subframe. I'll explain why in just a few, but let me get to putting these motor mounts on. I know that it's a 17 up top, so I'm gonna use a ratcheting wrench, 17, hopefully break those free, no problem. And then, yeah, new motor mounts on. That boy Jalil pulling up on the block. What's good, baby?
You know what it is, dude.
Yes, sir. Little bay window mafia right here, eh? Oh, if only the channel knew about mine, bro. Well, actually, if they watched the first video, they did. But very first video, if you guys want to check it out, very first video was when I did a burnout in my bus and dropped the engine and transmission. But yep, pulled up to Bull, pulled up to help film, pulled up to help work on the LS. So let's get back to it. All right, so just for the ease of putting this front subframe back in and lining it up with these bolts in and out, just in case I have to mess with anything, I did take off the lower control arm. So I undid it from the coilover itself, and then I undid the tension arm that goes right there. I believe that is a 22. Mine were, or my coilover bolt was a 19 and then a 17 on the nut. But yeah, so I have the, there is a little bit of tension on the power steering rack, but it's also held up by a bungee. I'm about to put up the front subframe, make sure that everything mounts up, no problem, and then put everything back together. So I did it for both sides. Both sides are now suspended and ready for the front subframe to get back on. So let me get to that, and if I have anything that I run into or any other issues, also I will explain how to use the washers in between the subframe as well, because what we did was basically cut the, let's get focused on this real quick. So because what we did was basically cut off this amount from the subframe is going to sit higher, which means that the nut holding the front subframe on is not going to be able to go all the way up because it is not threaded. So when the front subframe goes on, what you're going to have to do is basically add a few washers. I'll let you know how many and how thick the washers I'm using is, and then use the nut to tighten that down to basically squish the washers against the front subframe. So let's get to it. Shout out to Jalil for helping me, of course, as always. We got the subframe is actually on right now. So let's get this lighting good for you guys. There we go. So the shortened subframe is on. The steering rack is right now sitting on the extensions that the subframe has on. Let's see if I can show you guys real quick. Oh, where is it? Right there. Steering rack is sitting on there. Bolts aren't on yet. But this is what I'm talking about. So this is where the washers are going to come in handy. Basically, if the bolt or if the nut is all the way up, that's about maxed out right there. So as you can see, there's still going to be space. Well, it's because this bolt right here is not completely threaded. It is only threaded about this much, which works on the stock subframe length because there's about this much more. But now you're going to have the problem with this nut maxing out. So like I did for the other side, that bolt is completely tight. So I put five washers tucked inside of here on top of this nut, and basically it allows the nut to tighten all the way up without the subframe being loose at all. So I've got, like I showed before, these I got a 50 count, so Alex can use some as well. 9/16 flat washers, grade 8. You got to go with the strong boys. And let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So let's see. All right, so we're back right here. I've got the 5 stacked washers. They luckily, if you're gonna go to Ace and you're gonna look for washers, 9/16 I believe is it's the diameter of the middle, but it's not the diameter of the entire washer. So please bring this nut with you and get washers that are the exact same diameter of the whole nut, because if not, they won't be able to actually go inside of the subframe. So let's show you what we're working with right here. And they fit super snug too. You got to move them around a little bit as you raise it up. But right here, basically we got to the point to where it's starting to get tight, and I will use the wrench to tighten that down. I might actually add one more, a 6th washer, just for safe measure to make sure that it is tightened completely. But yeah. So subframe is on. All 4 bolts are, well, all 4 nuts with the washers are tightened down. I ended up using 6 on every single one, just to make sure that I was tight on the threads. So right here, engine mounts. Let's see. Bolts for the new engine mounts are on. The bolts for the power steering are on. 1 and 2, if you guys can see that. There you go. Those are 17s. This is a 17. And yeah, so basically subframe is back on. Putting it on is the easy part. It's basically taking it off, and shaving it is going to be the hard part. So what I do recommend is taking out your traction arm, taking out your coilover bolt, and taking out your, well, you have to take out the lower control arm because it mounts to the rear subframe. But with all of this out of the way, I was able to basically just put the subframe up. I used a jack just to hold it in the middle so I can get both sides with the help of Jalil and my dad. And yeah. So earlier when I was raising this up, I actually think I pinched a line on my power steering, so it is slowly leaking. I'm gonna have to check that out, but I believe it is just a clamp that came undone on a hose. So I'll look at that later, but basically everything is back together. So what I'm gonna do now is put all of these lower control arms back on, put the coilovers back on. I'm gonna do one side at a time, and then get the little things back together, like this plastic brace that holds a wiring line or wiring harness, whatever you want to say, to the front subframe, and some other little things. So I'm hyped how fast this is coming together. And yesterday, honestly, if I had more time, or if de-welding was able to cut my subframe, then it would have went a lot quicker, and I think it would have been done yesterday. But now we're gonna get to this. I think Jalil and my dad were messing with some lighting in the bus, and boys over here cooling and booling, looking at new cars to buy. You feel that?
That's
all right,
tough, G. That's tough.
Let's get this back together. Hey, wheels are coming out the garage. You already know what that means. Car is about to come on its own moving power. So I got to take the chains off. I also have to do a bunch of little things like bolt this little thing back on, put all the protective plastics and stuff. Even though they're gonna get ripped off, I'm gonna put them on anyways for just now, just in case of any leaks. You know, I'm not, you know, leaking all over the driveway. But I will have to show you guys when it's on the ground with some light maybe. But damn, this subframe, if you fall, oh, it's hard to see. All I'm saying is this front subframe, now that it's raised, is almost the same height as the frame. So I'm actually super hyped on that. I'll show you guys once it's on the ground, probably later this evening. Me and Jalil are gonna go get some food. Hey, boy, you about white as there we go. But yeah, so I'm happy with how it is. I'm gonna see how it is on the ground. Probably later this evening I'm gonna put on all the little things. I'll show you guys what I'm doing too, just in case you forgot or need a little reminder. And then yeah, basically next is alignment. I'm gonna lower it some, figure out some other things with clearancing right there so my top of my wheels don't hit. I gotta make sure that when I'm really dumped and tucking, I'm not hitting the wiring harness, which I already tucked. If you're interested in that, go check one of the older videos. I posted it for both sides, but soon the front will be sitting like the rear. The rear is raised right now. That's going down. So let's get this back together, and I'll show you guys once it's on the ground. Me and Jalil had a hard time getting the lowers on, but we ended up getting them on. The car is down on the ground, and it makes sense, but the car technically raised in the front. So the subframe being like this, and then actually raising up is going to put more tension on the lower, which is going to push the lower down. So the car is actually, it used to be fender to, basically fender to lip, and the lip used to be just inside the fender, so tucking just a little bit, but it's okay. We have 5-inch 100K springs right here that is going on, so that is not going to be a problem. That'll be another video for another day. But I left off the engine cover and some of the other little plastic trims, like I said before. After we go and eat, I'll probably do that once the sun goes down. I'm pretty baked. I know Jalil's pretty baked, and we're both hungry, so I'm gonna take a quick shower, get all of this grody-ness off me, and then go grab some grub. So I think we're gonna take the fair lane, get a little publicized action out in the streets of El Florida. But hope you guys enjoyed this so far. Stay tuned.